Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and guests unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness. Get ready to find your free will from your roots in the stars.
Hello, everyone, wherever you might be, as we are orbiting with the sun in Leo right now. And this is Talk Cosmos. I'm Sue Rose Minahan. Tonight is August 15th in Seattle, Washington, and it repeats on Thursday at 6 a.m. for you that go online and listen to us. And we're going to talk about the astro weather, the cosmic astro weather. And today, earlier on August 15th, and I'm in Pacific time. I realize that others of you are in Eastern time, which is 3 hours later, Hawaii 3 hours earlier, and even over in Africa and Europe. So we have listeners. The point is that on the 15th here, and it could be on the 16th over in Europe and other places, at 10:42 this morning, Uranus went retrograde, and it will continue being retrograde until January 14th. That's 5 months? September, October, November, December, January, approximately. It's a significant period of time. The outer planets go retrograde every year, and as life does reflect the cosmos, and the cosmos is a relationship, and that's why we look at astrology, is to understand these influences and how is it asking from us, these energies. The point is that one knows offhand, we reflect, we ponder things aren't always in our system of organization. They are not going quite as forward as we might anticipate. And that is in part the retrograde phenomena, which is, I have to always remind an audience that it's our perspective from Earth. Our astrology is Earth-centered. It is the ecliptic, that's the path of the sun going around the planets that all orbit the sun. So essentially we are sun-oriented because all the planets go around the sun, but it's still from our perspective here. So from our perspective, with the orbits from our view, it appears that the planet is not going in the same direction because it's gone in this circular fashion and it looks to be retrograde, and that's our experience. Uranus, the awakener, it puts us into our authentic territory, whether we like it or not. It's always not a prescription that's easy to take. And we'll discuss that. Madam Simon, who has been on the program at earlier times, go to Talk Cosmos and you can find out just what events she's been talking. As she dedicates her primary astrological research to studying many forms of Lilith, and it's quite fascinating always to pick up on this very essential energy too. Madam Simon, she illuminates energies and also is an archetypal astrologer, a tarot reader, visionary fine artist, lives on Camano Island in Washington, studied and practiced divination arts for 3 decades, and creates, actually, not just makes, but creates custom art based upon astrological events, plus a one-of-a-kind hand-stitched herbal dream pillow. And that's significant. Healing comes in all forms. And I'm sure these have a great deal of energy and care associated with them, as I've really enjoyed our conversation. She goes into great depth and quite a bit of awareness. So thank you. Hello, Madam Simon. I'm glad that we are now going to ponder Uranus.
Hello, Sue. Good to be here again.
And actually, I might add, it's not just Uranus, it's the whole astro weather, as you aptly put when we were talking about it. But Uranus is pretty significant with that turn of events that's I felt almost immediately today. am selling and moving and liquidating. I just decided this and decided a week ago, and my due date I've decided is next week. Not too quick, huh? Little Aries Mars happening here, but also I've recognized that the deep concentration I've had on certain objects, because I don't need to take with me excess, and Taurus is about our values, as we know. And so we had a little discussion about this, but just that factor of suddenly realizing that I could shift, like a sudden shift, like Uranus is, my perspective on something that I had greatly valued, even where I live. I think it was approaching this energy for some time.
Right. Well, Taurus relates to our material resources, our relationship with our planet, our relationship with our bodies, our fundamental survival needs. And Uranus brings sudden change, sometimes shocking, unexpected change, the thing that you never thought you would think. You're likely to think when Uranus is highlighted in some way. And so, with today, Uranus stationing, which means appearing to stop in the sky, okay, as the beginning of turning retrograde. That means all things related to Uranus are highlighted. Okay, so that includes things like technology. Uranus is very much related to the sciences, and in Taurus is related to sciences and technologies that deal with our physical world, that deal with things like what we eat and how we tend to our survival needs. But also, this is definitely a shift in how one views one's material possessions is absolutely appropriate to a Uranus station.
Thank you. Yes, it's mundane, as in that sense of the worldly things, but yet it affects our values on everything, on how can we let go and what associates our value of anything. And we tend to project so much into a material item. And really, is that the value? One reason I'm leaving is because life is vibrant and alive, and the idea of going out to enter life on an experiential basis, being new, is quite exciting, of course.
Well, also, if we look at the chart for Uranus's station this morning, it reflects some other aspects, some other dynamics between other planets that are going on right now that also reinforce that. So we see Mars in Aries. Mars is going to be in Aries for a while. He's got a retrograde coming up, and that's putting him in Aries for a much longer time than normal. Yes. And Aries is one of his home signs. Yeah, he's going to be in for 6 months. And Mars right now, so he's in this challenging aspect with Pluto, who governs change, transformation. Uranus governs change in that kind of like sudden way, but Pluto is more like long, slow, grinding kind of transformation.
Transmuting, yes.
Right. And Pluto is in conjunct with the sun right now, and is actually forming what is known as a yod, the finger of God. It's this aspect, this triangular aspect, forming between Pluto and Neptune in a supportive sextile aspect. Both of those are retrograde. And then they are pointing at the sun and Mercury in Leo. Now the sun's in his domicile. He's in Leo, which is where a sign that he rules. Okay. And so the sun's in a place of power and is in this lovely trine supportive aspect with Mars in Aries. So even though Mars is, kind of frustrated, I guess, and feeling challenged by that square to Pluto, he's getting support from the sun. And is supporting the sun. And Mars is all about action. Okay. And in Aries, it's very much about adventure. So the idea of going off on a grand adventure, living life as an adventure, is supported by the astrology right now.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it is. And it is incredible, as you say that, to realize, because there's a grand trine with our south node, which is in fiery Sagittarius. So we have the sun in Leo, the second fire sign, at 23, and the south node at 27 as it regresses. Just to advise people, it starts at 30. It just went in there, I think it was May 6th, something like that, and it'll stay in there for a year and a half. And then Mars at 23. Yeah, Mars is going to be quite a journey. We're a lot of action, in that fiery sign that's initiating and cutting away. And the retrograde will be September, I think, through November sometime, and then it finally leaves the early part of January. But we're experiencing new identity, yes, in many ways.
Well, and also, kind of a cutting away of what we don't need, and a reshaping of the structures of our life, both through Uranus and Taurus, literally, shaking up our material experience, but also, Pluto and Saturn, Pluto going through this long transformational thing, and Saturn, very much relating to the powers that be, doubling down, trying to hold on to things as they've been, holding on to the status quo. But what I find really interesting is that with that yod, you see that combination of Pluto in particular, supported by the sextile with Neptune. So Neptune relates to our hopes and our dreams and our illusions and our delusions, yes, but that desire to have a better world, to see the world through, almost through rose-colored glasses in a way. And then Pluto can be, a lot more of the kind of the things that we don't necessarily want to see, a lot of shadow material there, but also power and our compulsions. And both of those supporting each other are pointing like this finger, this attention that is being highlighted for us on the sun in Leo and our Mercury in Leo together. The sun in Leo it governs the heart, and it's a fiery heart as opposed to just emoting all over the place. Okay,
yes.
It's like our spirit, our passion, the core sense of self,
yes,
and our worthiness.
Yes, but we manage to truly feel our identity to emit.
How we shine.
Yes,
literally.
Thank you. That's right. That's right.
How do we shine? And with Mercury right there, it's also, that's ideas that shine and reflect our core sense of self, our core purpose, our heart. And so, yes, we're in the midst of some intense change societally. There's a lot of stuff going on, folks feeling challenged by forces that are beyond their control, via the pandemic, via economic situations, via political situations. And there is this drive for action. And at the same time, that action feels like it's, bumping its head up against against these really big, powerful forces that you can't control. And yet those big, powerful forces are saying, look to your heart, look to your core, look to your sense of purpose and your ability to shine. What makes you shine? What makes us all shine?
It's very true. And a yod has such depth that many times you need to juggle. It's not, I mean, in order to really achieve the strength of a yod, it's called the finger of God. And for the reason I've often thought, since I have one, I mean, many of us do, besides, sitting there, is you need to be really true to yourself, because it's that higher intent, it will call you out because it's like all three of those parts. Traditionally there's three, but here we have how many planets? We have 6 planets involved in this yod. They each want and expect their own direction, and sort of find that meeting ground, that especially since the apex is in Leo and the sun are the center focus of our umbrella of identity, and in its own sign, as you say, brought up, there's really that calling to release things. I'm glad you brought up the fact of Mars, because it's not just one aspect. It is this multiplicity of energies that are intertwined to help each other, and sometimes stymie each other if it's our way and not thy way, as often is praised upon. And with Uranus, it's really at this moment doesn't have any real connection immediately. It's a little bit of a lone. So here it is, this big presence that's very centered. I mean, it may be in somebody's chart, but as far as just the sky by itself, the cosmos, so in other words, that attention, I like how you've brought that together, because that attention is disruptive. That's what Uranus does. It's the planet outside of Saturn that said, wait a minute, we don't have boundaries. We're outside the boundaries. And there you go. There's Uranus, sideways and backwards, the way it spins. But it does, the combination, that's what I'm thinking, of Uranus now on its journey of disruption necessarily, and then to have this at the moment, this yod finger of God that is asking us of the Neptunian greater powers beyond us, such as the cosmos and the world and our dreams and our spiritual thoughts, along with our illusions and that's the point, the illusions. I think with that Saturn and all this energy, it does get back to, like, for instance, me looking at something and thinking, yeah, I've treasured that, but why? Sure, it reflects my family, but, I'm like the little turtle with my back. I can't cart everything with me, and maybe it served its purpose. Maybe there's space for new things, which isn't just attached to that item, but it begins to release that whole depth of connecting to meaningfulness so that one can really open for the new leaves of spring that will come one day.
Well, keep in mind, this is also, this is a very interesting juxtaposition of the personal and the social, even the global. As you pointed out, so the exact aspects with regard to that yod, you're looking at Neptune, the Sun and Mercury, and Pluto, but Pluto is basically acting as a midpoint between Saturn and Jupiter, and so he's drawing those two in as well. Now, Pluto and Neptune are both outer planets. Saturn and Jupiter are considered to be social planets. And then you've got Mercury, this personal planet, and the sun, something very, very personal to us. You know, and then as I mentioned, Mars is also considered a personal planet. And interestingly enough, Mars is actually on Black Moon Lilith right now. And she very much deals with what is our core sense of beingness. Okay. This yin space of who we are when we're not doing, right? And then Mars is all about the action. So here we've got our pure yin and our pure yang together.
Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Really driving us to get our actions in alignment with our core sense of self.
And it takes
who we are without anybody else telling us what to be. And at the same time, those outer planets and those social planets can have us feeling like, you know, literally all the forces of these giant things in the world that we don't feel like we have any control of are bearing down on us.
Madam Simon, that's beautiful. That truly is. And looking too, I noticed the sun, as you know, in his own sign of, that's where the rulership it is itself. That of course it is, but it is. But the moon, because on the 18th, this coming Wednesday here on the Pacific Coast, anyway, is the new moon in Leo, which is the best. Well, it's a very powerful new moon of manifestation for the year. You know, unless it's an eclipse, or I mean, as we know, it's in Leo, but the moon is in its own sign and it's conjunct. What drew my attention to it was because, and I'm saying this for the audience, going to rulership, you know, because there's always this relationship between not just planets out there, but what sign is that planet transiting? How is that expressing itself? And in an area or in a sense. And Uranus in Taurus, of course, looks to beautiful Venus that rules two signs, both Taurus and Libra. And it's right close to the moon. They're both in Cancer. So here you have these energies that are at the moment, as you said, holding space in their own and really centering about how does one feel and what are the values of that with everything. Because as you say, it's not just my mundane life here. One reason moving is because of the social and the global situation. We're all working at it. And then I see this headline today in Seattle that our president opposes a postal office to limit mail voting, which, you know, Uranus is a higher echelon of Mercury, but we have Mercury, the transporter, Hermes, between the spirit world and the communicator, like the twins, you know, it went between the material and the spirit world, and sometimes shows us what a trickster idea too, not always, but it has many ways to communicate. But anyway, that's definitely a energy that's very current with our skies talking.
Well, that yod again really strikes me as very much reflecting the issues with regard to the postal service. You know, Pluto, power and control in a sign of tradition and the status quo. Capricorn.
Autocratic, yeah. Authority that.
Well, keep in mind, it's not a matter. The Pluto in Capricorn is not democratic. Pluto in Capricorn.
Oh no, autocratic.
Autocratic. Yes, is the oligarch. Is the you know, is literally power governance by the wealthy. Okay. Yes. And then in that sextile to Neptune, Neptune can relate to, lovely, high-minded spiritual stuff, but Neptune can also relate to deception.
Yes, because illusion, one doesn't know. And with the dream factor, it's not grounded. It is with the better sources. I mean, not sources, but the higher energies. Go ahead. Yes, I'm supporting you.
and so then, with both of those pointing to that Sun Mercury conjunction there, yes, they're in the sign of Leo and in relation to, our heart and our ability to shine, but they're putting a lot of pressure on the individual's ability to shine through their vote.
Yes, on many levels.
And to communicate their vote and their purpose and their power. Yeah.
And interestingly, there's both sides. There's always both sides to everything. And I'm realizing as you've said that, because it could, I like how you brought it out as the individuals, because again, Leo is a personal, it's down below of the horizon, and it is what we become. It's our whole essence, but it is also leadership of rulership in a way, a lot like so if it was reversed and we looked at that as the leadership that's trying to exert itself, and as our needs of our systems, thinking of the Capricornian systems that are really being the whole belief structure of Jupiter, with the transmutation of tearing down what isn't supporting life growth of Pluto, with the essential structure of Saturn in its own sign that's going retrograde again. There is and Neptune that dissolves it, that's ultimately a truth seeker. There's so many truth seekers here. So it is most interesting to see both stresses on this, as far as intriguing introspection. We will return in a moment. I am Sue Rose Minahan for Talk Cosmos, August 15th, returning on the 20th, Thursday. It'll repeat with Madam Simon, and we were talking about Uranus, the Awakener, the cosmic weather, and we'll be glad to come back to you. Thank you.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the Yang period of Leo, ruled by the solar sun. Having departed from a cycle based on the internal process of emotional attachments requiring security and safety, the energy of Leo externally manifests our legacy through children and artistic creations. As a fixed Yang fire sign that desires to ignite actualization, Leo the lion takes the risk to generously exhibit love and welcome all to share their stage with joyous pleasure for living life.
Hello, this is Catherine Zumstein of EarthSkyAstrology.com, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM, where we discuss the meaningfulness of our roots in the stars.
You found us. Maybe you've been guided to listen. Alternative Talk 1150.
I like that. Welcome again. And Madam Simon, as we ponder this, jumping with our cosmic weather in Leo here, which we have been talking about, going back to Uranus in Taurus, I happen to support a group that started this year, I think, called 8 Billion Trees. And it's a nominal support, but it was based on the idea that as one potential fix, of course, Jupiter is always potentialities, if we were to plant 8 billion, thank you, not million, but billion trees on the globe, it would essentially resolve our ecological issues, which was a tall order, but this group took it on. And what they're indicating is, and okay, a lot of that planting has been in the state of Para, P-A-R-A, in Brazil, which is the greatest deforestation since 2006 has been in that area. But they go from many levels. They're like holistic health. They're not just doing the symptom, but they're training people in that area to value and not deforest. And so it's and they do put it in areas that have experienced 70% of vegetation loss. And so far, they have planted 1 million trees. 1 million. It's progressing, and anyway, about in the half, a little less. Anyway, so it's moving along. But what they also are saying is that there's evidence, and this is where Uranus, the awakener, the lightning bolt of vision that tells us what we can see, and then in that vision work to improve, elevate. It's elevation. It's that they're noticing that deforestation and spreading of disease are linked, because as we humans destroy the land, and the animals are moving in more that had been protected in the forest, and they bring disease. And there's different, anyway, it goes on to there's different kinds. But what they're indicating is that to protect animals to be where they are, to have this whole ecosystem, as those that understand about the ecology to some degree, to realize it's this relationship that we really need to realize about the danger of deforestation, which is so Tarian. I mean, Tarian is the earth, and it's, we understand that the ocean has its problems, but the earth, the very earth, the soil we live on, that trees with their roots, the groundedness, it's so important.
And, it's interesting when you brought up this upcoming week's new moon in Leo and the connection between Venus and Uranus in that chart. They are in a very tight sextile for that new moon. And sextiles are about harmonizing energies between planets. And so Venus is very personal. Venus deals with our love, our affection, our ability to connect with others, and our values. And as you mentioned, Taurus is one of the signs that she rules. And so here is this very personal planet in the sign of Cancer. Cancer rules the moon. The moon will be in Leo, okay? But Cancer rules the moon, and so Venus has a certain amount of control over our emotions during that time. So that's a very affectionate feeling with the pride of Leo and the sense of self and the desire to shine. And yet there's this also, here is Venus trying to harmonize with Uranus, okay, one of those outer planets, at a time when there's so much, kind of stress with regard to the other outer planets, okay. And so it's almost like Venus is Venus is like a charming and kindly woman, or person,
Yeah.
Trying to say to like these larger forces, hey, wait a minute, maybe we can get along. Maybe we can actually have, this change be something that reflects compassion in our heart and our sensitivities and our feelings, instead of just being kind of, a bit shocking and maybe even, disillusioning. One of the problem sides of Uranus is a tendency toward detachment. And And so it's interesting to see then this relationship between Venus and Uranus for this new moon that is saying, hey, Uranus, you don't need to be so detached. Come in and see what it's like to have a personal stake in things.
Yeah, let's network. Let's invent some social concepts of I don't know what concepts. I like that. Leo is joy. And if we're going to have a conversation, it really brings me back to the root of the focus of our times right now. There's to have that, as you say, love in the heart, because regardless of all the things that take us away through how we see things is our perspective. And I'm stating things I'm stating the obvious, I think, to a lot of people and to yourself too. So, but just to build on a thought process here, but because it is how we think about it, it's also how we feel about it. And to feel that again and again comes up with so much transformation, with whether it's quote new age or current spiritual consciousness. I think spiritual consciousness or higher consciousness is becoming the word rather than new age, because it is the new life is thriving. That's very beautifully recognized. It's a good new moon to make a manifestation, release what one wants to dispel of, and somehow make a vision board or a little, just even write down or just vocally or light a candle, something that helps you illuminate a new vision.
Well, there's also something else that's going on with that is that right now, and it will still be the case at the time of that new moon, Venus, as of today, is oh goodness, I think she's applying to a square with Chiron, but by the time of that new moon, she'll be separating from that square. Still in orb, still close enough for it to matter. Venus is in this challenging aspect with Chiron. So she's in a supportive aspect with Uranus, but this challenging aspect with Chiron. And Chiron relates to our sensitivities, where we feel like we have been injured or where we feel like we've been given the short end of the stick in some way, where we have been hurt in a way that we don't know how to remedy for ourselves, but that because of that sense of injury, we can actually exercise more compassion toward others. Okay.
And put it to use for others. Yes.
Right. And here's the interesting thing. Aries is where Chiron is right now. Okay. Aries is very much concerned with one's identity. It's that first sign in the zodiac. And so it's that first establishment of I exist. I'm differentiated from the cosmic soup.
Yep, right.
And so Chiron in Aries relates to a sense of wounding about our identity, who we are.
Absolutely, yes.
And so that's a very interesting background energy to have to this new moon in Leo, because Leo is very certain of who I am, of who we are. Okay. Leo has that sense of, I'm here, I shine, I have reason and purpose, and I want to share that with you. Whereas Chiron in Aries says, I don't know who I am.
Well,
especially after all of the changes we've been going through.
Exactly.
Especially after all the turmoil.
It's actually
trauma.
Yeah, it's a perfect time to have a new moon like this, because a new moon by the sea, that's when the sun and the moon, there is no light because the earth is in front of the reflection, and that's that 28-day cycle, just to, again, for the audience. But I see life as a prescription basis, as you've said, since March for sure, and January we could predate it, and then we were aware of this coronavirus before that to some extent, but not so deeply. But since March, for certain, it's become very prominent and altered radically everything that we know about in our life structure. So yes, we're all truly wondering, how do we fit with this new paradigm, which is, as we know, an astrologer's website and energy, and it's so true. But this new in the sense it is yet developing, and it's developing because of people, each one of us, that is taking life as it is being handed to them to redesign who they are. And I think a lot of it is realizing it's like the butterfly that takes a while to be recreated. Lives, there's partly the compost of one's life that can build new growth, and there's other part that just needs to be shunned. And you find the treasure in the dirt. You don't need all the dirt, you just need the treasure. So relating back to Uranus with its ruler, which is Venus, because it's in Taurus, with its ruler, this new moon is really, and what you're bringing up is that with the Chiron energy that we're also moving through, because life keeps changing, so it's going to be a new source of the predicament, the mission. It's the mission. And it is that matter of looking at those values, caring and loving and remembering we're united. We're not just alone in our survival, because I think we've brought up too that Taurus is very survival oriented, and it's a beautiful part about it. It's strong. It builds that new growth from Aries. It's the second sign, and it's going to survive. It's going to withstand gravity, as my instructor or teacher Maurice Fernandez often says. So it's not just a lollipop new moon. Oh, I want this, I want that, but truly deeply inside, how are we putting our shards, CHARDS, when pottery breaks and it's in pieces? What's our new mosaic?
And keep in mind, this is both personal and on a grand scale, on a world scale, on a country scale. There's lots of upheaval. There's lots of upheaval all over the world right now. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to just get caught up in what's going on in our, whichever country you're in or whichever neighborhood you're in, but the whole world right now is going through a lot of upheaval.
Yes.
If you look at international news right now, it is kind of insane.
Well, that's the amazing energy, is that we are united in that, in a very separated way. It's like trauma. We're all experiencing this break. The rhythm has stopped from what people have been habitually attached to, habitual and moon and attachments, and Uranus breaking it, all these energies that we're speaking of. I wonder, and of course, as we understand that Mars is retrograde. In fact, all three of the personal planets are retrograde. Mercury always is. It has already gone through Pisces, and then it went through Cancer, and now it will be going into Scorpio towards the end of the year in November.
But all three of the personal planets are not retrograde right now.
No, they're, excuse me. Oh, thank you, Madam Simon. Yeah, I apologize to our illustrious audience. I meant this calendar year of 2020, we will have experienced the retrogrades. I mean, we're familiar with quick moving Mercury, that 3 times a year, and this year it's going to all be in the water signs. But Venus isn't always every year, nor is Mars. Venus is about 1.6 years that it goes retrograde, and Mars is 2 years. But it happens to be in this calendar year, I think, because we're being it gets back to Uranus in Taurus, where it's being necessitated that humanity wake up, be the awake, listen up, to the awakener of that energy of Uranus, to realize that, as right in the beginning you said, it has Taurus has to do with our bodies, the planet, the material. What is our relationship? Venus, the ruler, also rules Libra. What is our relationship with all of those? Because it's I think I've pulled it all together there. It really is a monumental moment to distinguish the truth of what supports life, what's the real value that is a constant. It's the heart. That's one thing, getting back to Leo.
But also recognizing that going back to what you were talking about earlier, of that things that you have previously held on to, ways of doing things that we have previously held on to. Now is a time when Uranus is saying, are you sure about that?
Yes.
Is that really how you want to keep doing things? And, there are things that we may have done for centuries. Okay. Remember what I said previously about, Pluto in particular, but that whole cluster in Capricorn, Pluto, Jupiter, and Saturn all in Capricorn together, are very much show where the powers that be are doubling down and saying, oh no, we don't want things to change. Heaven forbid that they change, or if they do change, we want them to change in a way to cement our power more. Okay. And that is not serving everybody. It's only serving a limited few. And I think a lot of people, not just in the United States, although, the protests that have been going on in the United States have definitely highlighted this, but we're seeing protests in lots of places.
Yeah, Hong Kong for many. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so there's people all over the planet who are recognizing that the way we've done things for goodness knows how long are not actually serving everybody.
Nope.
They only serve a limited few. And unfortunately, they are serving that limited few at the expense of our actual home, at the expense of our earth, at the expense of our climate, at the expense of our lives. Literally in the case of people dying because of COVID, but also with all of the people who are being economically who have been economically disadvantaged, but are being more so now with all of the disruption to our economy.
And Mars is a perfect one, at 23, almost 24 degrees with Lilith, which I just realized that is exactly on my North Node. So,
so we're ready to move at this time.
Right. And Lilith, bless her soul, the primal energy of autonomy, I think for her to be in Aries is very representational, that first energy. I think of Lilith as such, as you were saying, to actually be in one's pureness. It's very essential. And I think with these limitations, like London, Hong Kong, so many, it's incredible to see the commonality of our experience with other, on a global scale, on a unification that way. So I think rather than, because there is a stresses between great wealth and it's been a wonderful world for certain people, and for all of us to a certain well, how can I say all is always a misnomer, so pardon me for even suggesting it, but still the United States has, if nothing else, great garage sales. My goodness, I lived in Mexico. There aren't garage sales there. You pay big money for any used object. It's not like here you can buy anything you need, just go outside and go to a garage sale until now. So we do have a level of abundance here that gets handed down to some extent, but we know that, as you say, it's at the expense of our collective environment, the world we live in. We need a reset button. We're getting a reset button. That's what we're getting. And also remembering that because this is Leo, it's time. I'm so glad you've brought it up. The heart, to unify that mind that might step away from feeling and feel that, so that we can get down to the center of what's true.
What's true, but also how do we shine? How do we be our best selves? How do we create a space in which other people can also be their best selves? How do we create a space in which all of us can shine?
Yes, mutual dignity and
Right.
yes, and opportunity. Oh, I love it.
And reconsidering, reviewing, revisioning is what retrograde is about. And especially with Uranus, it is a revisioning, seeing things in a different light with regard to how do we liberate ourselves? How do we make a more free society?
And I think it does all tie back into breaking away from those values that may have been conditioned, because we're talking about Saturn too, just throwing in all these words and concepts. I mean, it's this mix, like they say, a soup, but it is this of the conditioning that we've had that worked. Things seem to work. People, even on a beleaguered, fractured way, can manage to adapt and work. But there's a point when the wheel breaks. It's not pulling the cart. And we are at that moment where we need to reconsider. And I like your re-envisioning. Envisioning is so great because that's where imagination is part of, well, it is the core of what becomes. So it's our job. It's not just a job. It's our gift. It's a gift. Yes, it's Leo. It's our gift to envision and because there's a lot of work ahead. I mean, by work, we're just in one moment of time. We have this. We're going to be reviewing our energies. We're going to have a new set in December of other opportunities, and this will help set the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, before we go on, I will just mention that next week we begin Virgo. We have a mystery guest, and that will be very exciting. And this is Talk Cosmos on August 15th, repeated on the 20th in the morning. That's a Thursday every week. But podcast 1 has all the replays. And if you ever forget, go to Talk Cosmos, sign up. We're happy to send you our updates for the schedule and guests. Madam Simon is my guest tonight. She has Icon Alchemy. She makes beautiful artwork, and besides being a very gifted astrologer of consultations. And you can find out all this detail by going to Talk Cosmos. And we're so glad to have our audience. We want to connect more and more. So we are talking about the Leo cosmic weather at this moment with Madam Simon. And we have several minutes. So, okay.
You alluded to earlier, or actually just a short while ago, that this Uranus retrograde is setting the stage for what's coming up. And, in December in particular, Saturn will be joining Jupiter in Aquarius. And that is actually going to be the precursor to Saturn is going to start squaring Uranus next year. There will be a whole series of that.
Wow. Well, right now with Aries, it's like helping us forge. It is the cosmic weather of now. It's like get the action inside and recreate, re-envision. Thank you so much, Madam Simon. We have a few moments as we depart from our Talk Cosmos, but it's just always such a pleasure. I thank you.
Likewise, Sue. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and we love our audience. Blessings in every manner of your manifestation. We'll connect again. Good night.
Thank you for listening to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and guests unveil astrology's ancient archetypes that continually build the collective experiences in our unconsciousness. Be sure to tune in next Saturday at 6 p.m. to continue finding your roots in the stars.